Hello, my dear friends. We are here. I'm not Matteo, I'm just Mike. But Matteo will appear on your screens very soon. I want to announce, a couple of announcements. That first of all, that we have a small delay because we use another app and you watch us in 20 seconds delay. That's why you can easily type all of your questions during our session, during our lecture. We will have 3 blocks, and after each of them, we will read this answer, the questions, and give you the answers. And yeah, so I think that that's it. So I just want to introduce this great guy. I met with him a couple of times and he is always full of energy, and I'm sure that he will share it with you because he loves to do that, I guess. So yeah, and now we will get more information about the value of UX. Please welcome Matteo.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's see how I can share my deck. I assume now you can see the deck, right? Okay. So this session is called The Value of UX, and it has a very important title, but it's basically about how to get ideas from beautiful UX artifacts into something real, into something to make them happen for real. First of all, welcome everyone. I'm very glad to be here. As I said before, I met Mike on several occasions in the past. We've been working together in the summer school here in Berlin. And also we had some plans also to organize something in Kiev very soon. Let's see, finger crossed. But again, like, I'm very excited to be here and I have a lot of things to say. So I hope that we can compress everything and make it the session effective in the time that we have. First of all, I would like to clarify what is this session. So this session is meant to be something useful for primarily UX designers. So people that are working as a UX professionals in different fields of the digital product creation. Although I think that also if you are a team member, for example, a dev person, QA, or if you work as a product owner or as a product manager, you will find a lot of things that are familiar to you and might resonate with your experience. Again, like, those people that wants to see their best idea implemented in order to delight their users, in order to create something very meaningful for them, they will find something very interesting, because what we are going to explore is how the value of UX will create alignment and help to make the right choice. So how communicating the value of UX will make other people aware about the why we need to make something, and will create this kind of movement, this kind of tension towards making something real, something tangible all together. How the session is structured? Well, I'm trying to show you here sort of a map where we can see all the different things I'm going to tell you, and we can keep track of things. So I would like to start trying to answer this question, like, why good ideas, good design ideas get stopped in the process? And then from here, we will see how we can start doing something. So once we have cleared the problem, once we have like a good understanding of why things are stopped, why sometimes, brilliant ideas don't fly, we will see some practical ideas, some practical things that we can do in order to understand better the situation, and then start putting things one after the other in order to make things happening. I would like to show you and also to offer you some of the ways I learned in my past on how to communicate the value of UX design, some practical tips and tricks, practical structures, practical things that might be useful for you on your everyday job in order to put ideas all together. And also, I would like to give you a very practical idea how to gather feedback and adjust and improve things. Out of this, we're going to have also a final session, a final moment where we're going to have Q&A. But as Mike said, along the way, along the process, I'm going to stop my presentation. I'm going to check with him to see if there are some questions coming from the YouTube channel, the YouTube chat, and I'll try to answer them directly, so we can have a sort of a check, and we can be on the same page. So if something isn't clear, we can address it pretty straightforward. Before getting into the details, before getting into the problem, I would like to introduce myself. So this is me. My name is Matteo. As you see here on the top left, I put some icons representing who I am. I'm Italian, but I'm currently living in Berlin, Germany, since probably 5 or 6 years. So it's been a while now. And primarily, I'm working with people in Europe, in the UK, and also in North America, although it's not New York. I've been working mostly in Chicago and in California, on the West Coast. In the past years, I've been doing pretty much all things that you can imagine in software in development things. So basically from UI design to product management and strategy. And this is where I'm mostly spending my time right now. I have the chance of working with very clever people on my own company that I run for pretty much 7 years, but also in places like Eden Spiekermann here in Berlin and ThoughtWorks, which is a global consultancy firm, um, basically operating all over across the world. I had the chance also to work for a lot of very well-known clients and small ones like Vodafone, BMW, Red Bull, Mozilla. This is just a bunch of them. But also with startups, with some kind of dynamic environment where things are happening way faster than those places. What I'm good at is basically helping executives, managers, and teams to rethink the way they're creating digital products, to look at their processes and to see if there is something that we can do together in order to make their efforts more effective. So in a word, I'm basically creating the environment so things like user-centered design can happen. I'm not technically a designer, although I've been working a lot with designers. I think that I can understand most of the conversation happening in the design space. And I think that I can share a tips or two about how effective designers are working. My area is more about understanding what is the right thing to build. And also, again, like it's about empowering people. It's about making them in the position, in the situation where they can do their best and they can actually build things with the right approach and the right process and the right tools and everything that they need. So as I said before, this is the problem that quite often I see in digital teams, that sometimes, there is a very talented UX person, and those people normally have a lot of bright ideas. They have brilliant things. There are practical ways to improve their products and make their customers happy. Although those good things, those good ideas are not really enough to make this thing happening, to make this kind of improvement happen at the end. Why? What's the reason? So let me share some of the insights I've been spotting, let's say, along my career and in different places I've been working in. So first of all, there is this kind of representation that tries to picture how most of the companies are thinking about how to build digital product. So most of the companies, most of the places where they build applications, websites, or in a word like digital services, they work pretty much like this. So there are people, they're sitting in the business. They are normally, sitting on the top floor, and they are spending all their times in meetings in their wonderful offices, or maybe just the clients that comes in and wants to buy something, and they decide that something has to be done. Then there is the management that tries to understand what are all the different parts, what are all the different things that needs to be done. And then there are the UX team, or just you are a simple UX designer that takes over the requirements and try to make something that's, is a sort of a spec, a sort of plan, a sort of design, again, like that goes to the development team, and they try to figure out what was the original intention, putting things together in order to make something solid and actually useful. And at the end, sometimes after very long months, those things goes to production and goes to the user. So first thing that we can observe out of this model is definitely that there are some arrows, but those arrows normally flows from left to right. So it's very hard for a person sitting on the UX design chair to have some ideas that maybe they can actually deprioritize something that has been decided on the business, on the management, or for example, some kind of the ideas coming out from the conversation with developers. Sometimes it's really hard that those ideas takes a path going right to left. So most of the things flows following those arrows, and it's very hard to make things going up again and be rediscussed. And another very important thing is that when we're building something like a digital product, or again, like a digital service, we are not alone. This is not a job made by a single craftsman where all things are managed by a single person and they can decide which direction they can take day by day. This is a team sport. And as a team, you have to act in a very different dynamic. So somehow it might be very challenging to have everybody thinking the same, to have everybody the same approach, and some kind of divergences are somehow natural, because I mean people tend to see things from a different perspective, and if you have some kind of brilliant ideas, sometimes it's very hard to have somebody coming in and buy completely this novelty that you want to that you want to bring in. Mm, there is a fact actually why people sometimes, I mean, or pretty often, are pretty suspicious about new ideas. And the fact is, it's kind of an inconvenient truth, I would say, that most of the ideas do not improve anything. So there is this research, but this is something that I'm sure that you can actually experience it in your life. Sometimes, like you have some ideas that are really awesome. You see here on the top right, some kind of some percentage of things that are very, very striking and they deliver the best result. Some others are definitely a disaster. And in between, there is this kind of meh session, right? Where most of the things, they don't really have an impact. They don't move the needle. You do it, you don't do it, it's pretty much the same. And this is kind of, a painful thing, because every time we are building something, so there is the cost of developing the feature. So there is the time, the effort that we're putting in order to make the things done. But there is also the cost of opportunity. So the fact that instead of doing A, we should do it B. So we are basically saying no to another idea in order to make an idea done. And also another thing is that every time we're introducing a new feature, a new improvement, a new hack, uh, a new piece of on this digital product thing, we are basically adding some complexity. So more things, more complexity, more and more parts are moving together, more relationships, and very, very different things. And this complexity, it has to be addressed. So there is somebody that has to go through all the different level of complexity when you have to introduce another thing. So every time somebody's coming in with a new idea, it's pretty natural that people think, uh, okay, this thing can be risky, and can be risky because most of the cases, I mean, there is a very huge percentage, a very huge possibility that this idea at the end is not going to improve anything. And there is also another element that I'm sure you felt in the past, and you can have a lot of this. That sometimes there is this kind of thing I've been observing in many teams where somebody's presenting a very good idea, or they are trying to talk about something that would make the product better, but most of the people are focusing on the wrong things. So I'm trying to picture, I heard this thing about, like, can we have it above the fold, or can we move this button up here, or can the logo might be bigger? Those kind of things are basically an indicator of the fact that most of the conversations are not focused on the right direction. So people tend to focus on something that is not the object of the discussion. So instead of thinking about the impact or the benefits that the whole feature is going to produce, most of the people are focusing on something that might be trivial, or might be fixed, or might be just smaller and very different. And that's why, in a nutshell, I would say good ideas have a very hard life. So it's very hard to get through all the different minds, all the different pair of hands that has to build something and has to make it real. So those kind of difficulties are pretty. I mean, I've been working with them in very different setups, and I have to say that they're very uh, common challenges for people working again, like in the space between UX products and development. As I said before, I was actually thinking about making some posts so we can check if there are some questions or if there are some kind of observations or if there is something that particularly resonated with people. So this is the moment where I'm going to ask Mike if there is something coming from the YouTube channel.
I reminded to our UX folks that they have this option, but no questions yet. I guess that all of them are just happy that it's not just their problem that they have all of these problems during their work process, but it's like regular type. So I think that they're just opening the bottles of champagne, that they're okay, or texting their chiefs that you see that this guy is telling truth. So let's wait for 5, 10 seconds. Maybe someone will text some questions. If not, we will move forward. I guess that maybe after the second block, we will have more questions.
Exactly. I'm sure that when we start looking at different approaches and different solutions, we will have a lot of questions. But for the moment, I mean, it makes me thinking that it's definitely true. It's definitely true that those things are happening pretty much everywhere because, again, like this is how most of the companies are thinking of the actual process of making digital products. So when we see, like, even like in large enterprises or small startups, the way people are thinking, the mental model that they have is not that different. So yeah, it's true. You're definitely not alone.
Okay, and I have the question about the size because you mentioned the size, and I wanted to ask that from your experience, because you work with different clients, where it's more often problems. So with big companies, with a couple of thousand people, or maybe even 10,000 people, or with the smaller startups, and why?
So it seems that you're saying like what's the difference between working on a large enterprise like it might be, I don't know, I said before I worked with BMW, for example, or some other small companies like, I don't know, a startup. Like, for example, there is a very nice one here in Berlin called the New Store that they do software for retailers, and there are something that is very different from an enterprise. um, well, my opinion is that is doesn't depend from the size of the company, because at the end the kind of problems that are emerging from applying this kind of mindset on producing software products, on producing digital things, are basically the same. So the people there, even though they are working a very different minds in my environment, they have the same mental model. They think that things should run like this way, and this is where most of the challenges are coming from. So it's very hard to make people think that, software is not a house. Software is not something physical that has to be built following a process of step by step, and in a very linear way, as I showed before. So this kind of mindset is present in enterprise as well as in different things. What is different is the way a solution can work. Like in a small setup, in a place where you have like a tech organization of around, I don't know, 30, 40 people, solution can happen very, very easily. While when you have an enterprise of thousands of people and you have a team made of 50 people that works on the same thing, and there are so many directors and controllers and checks and people, different dependencies all across the universe, I would say. Uh, they're making a solution. So making things change it's really, really challenging.
Cool, thank you. We got one question. I'm not sure that it's connected to this part, but just maybe it's up to you. What are global challenges of UX in 2020 relatively to web production usability?
Oh my God, this is a big question. I will save it for later because I mean it's
Yeah, let's
very
do it
interesting.
afterwards.
So yeah, let me also wrap my mind around it. This is
Okay.
this is a very good one. Thanks for asking. But again, like this is time probably now to get a little bit into solutions. So if this is the problem, like if we have like very hard times to make brilliant ideas being done, being transformed into something tangible. I mean, again, like having those ideas going through the whole pipeline and become something real for our users. What can we do? Where shall we start? There is one thing, and again, like if there is one thing that you should take from this presentation, is this one here. It says, understand to be understood. And basically means that if we want to understand, if you want to somehow see why things are not working, first of all, in order to change things, in order to be understood, in order to have your ideas making through the process, you need to understand how things are working. And this should be somehow very easy for a person that define themselves like a designer, because normally great designers are great communicators. This is something that you see when you have the chance of speaking with people that had a great careers, and you see that mostly what they've been doing across different disciplines or different things. I remember I said, like, I've been working with Eden Spiekerman, so I had the chance of talking a lot with Eric Spiekerman. And one thing I remember from Eric, this definitely Eric is a communicator. So before being a designer, before being a person, a craftsman, is definitely a person that knows how to communicate. And a very important thing about communication that sometimes we tend to forget is about listening. And again, like understanding. And as a UX designer, as a UX professional, you probably live in a galaxy, in a universe made by a lot of people. And I try to represent here something that it might be familiar for many. So as a UX designer, you basically have to deal with executives and finance people, and they have their own language. And there are product people, program managers, product manager, and they think and they talk about very, very different things. And then there are like branding people, marketing people, again, another language that might be different from the sales, from the customer success, from the sys administrators, the software architects, the QA, and so on and so on. So first is the fact that as a UX designer, we are living in a bubble where we are somehow orbiting across different bubbles, and each one of them, they have very different language, very different ideas, very different priorities. And the first thing to understand is where we are. So when, for example, there is a UX professional sitting in the team, the kind of communication that they have normally are across those 3 points. So there's about tactical decision making. So how this button should look like. So how we should do this, how the registration form or the checkout process should be made. And most of the conversation are oriented to delivery. So what do we need to have in order to make it done? And sometimes, things has to flow fast. So time is a very important aspect. So most of the communication happening here, let's say at team level, when there is a product owner, the quality analyst, and the developers, are basically around those 3 points. When we have the chance of interacting with the rest of the organization, with the people, for example, again, like executives, program managers, marketing people, sales, branding, there are different conversations that we should have, like we normally have if I'm taking the UX designer position. It's definitely about strategy, it's strategic thinking. Why we should do this instead of that? What are the reasons? What is the relational complexity, which means that who are the people? What are the different parts? Who are the different services involved? Do we have to call? Do we have to include somebody working on a different thing, on a different team, on a different time zone? Or this is something that we can do by ourselves here in our office, in our team, in our small place, in our small planet. Again, like there are different things, and again, like different topics, different level of communication. And sometimes, again, like we have also to deal with external people, with people coming from the outside, where we have like an executive from a different company, we have a product director, sometimes we have an IT director or a community manager, somebody representing the community of the users. And in those cases, what they want to talk about is about how our approach as a company, as a team, is the best one why we need to go through the way that we are trying to push. What is important for the user, again, like trying to understand their users, their customers, and trying to be a bridge between themselves and how their customers are behaving. Again, like as a UX professional, you might find this very, very familiar. So you have like very different bubbles, very different very different people, and again, like very different languages that somehow you have to learn in order to have those very different communications between all those different things. Um, and there is also another element if we are looking at people and if we're looking at the role. And this is something that I'm normally saying, like, okay, where we should start? We should start probably applying the same thing, the same technique that we have when we are talking about users, or when we are doing something like, again, like when we are applying the user-centered methodology. So the first thing about user-centered methodology is about, getting to know about their users, your users. So it's about acquiring information, and a very good way to understand who are the people working around you, who are the people that are making the decisions, who are the people that somehow we have to influence in order to make their change, in order to have our ideas flowing and having them on board with them. Again, like we have to understand it very well. And this is a kind of a model. This is something that I'm normally doing with teams when I'm helping them to understand their landscape. Again, it's a kind of a radar. Again, it's a kind of stakeholder mapping, but it's a little bit different. Again, like what we like to do here is about now our customers, like who are the people that we are acting with? What is their role? And how much influence do they have when it's about to make decisions? Again, like I'm normally splitting the space between approvers, which are the people that normally have the final word, and the people that are holding the decision. Normally, I mean, it's quite often happening that there is a single person that have the final decision, but it may be that there is some kind of, other people that might have a very high influence on the person that is the technical decider, and we can have like more, we can win more, let's say, if we go and get them on our side. And then there are people like contributors, for example, people that have knowledge and expertise that might influence the decision. And then there are people that has to be informed somehow, they wants to be in their circle. So when we are having like, when we have a new idea, when there is something new, when we have to communicate the value of our UX improvement, the first thing that we have to do is to understand who are the person in front of us, who are the people that at the end have to take the decision, who are the people that can influence this process, and who are the people that has to be somehow informed, that wants to be in the loop, because those people might be future contributors or future approvers, or so on and so on. And again, like I said before, the right way to go through this is to apply the same thing that might be familiar to you when we are talking about understanding our customers. And one of the things that comes to my mind quite often when we're working with teams and trying to figure out who are their stakeholders, who are their approvers and contributors and informed, is to apply the same patterns that you probably have seen on user personas. But instead of making the user persona as a whole, I normally say like, okay, let's take a proper profile. Let's take somebody that can represent a way of thinking. For example, here we have like a software developer. What do they care about? What is important for them? And again, like we can start asking, I mean, we can ask our questions to ourselves, and we can try to fill up with some, I don't know, post-its or virtual post-its, like building a sort of a Miro board where we can collect some of the insights. I'm putting here some examples. And for example, here, say like software developers, they want to understand their goal to minimize their work, because if it's very clear what they're trying to achieve, so they will find the best way to do instead of doing it multiple times. And because of this, what we should focus on is to understand the user scenarios that we can forecast, so to give them a lot of information about what are the scenarios, what are the cases that we are trying to cover. Again, like if you're a developer, you probably care about a clean, scalable, and maintainable code. How can we help them? What shall we focus on when we're talking with those people? Well, it's about reusing existing patterns and maximize changes. Again, like if we are in a situation where we have to convince a software developer, the first thing to know is that what do they care? And again, like once we have those elements, what we should focus on when we are talking with those people, to have them on our side. Again, like, for example, they may have the feeling that they want to own the product. They want to feel that they are building something, that they're making something by their own. And for this reason, it's very nice when we have the chance of engaging them with co-design, early involvement, quick feedback loop. And this kind of pattern can be applied to multiple profiles. For example, I mean, again, like I'll try to picture here another example when we have to deal with a project manager. Again, what do they care? What is important for those people? Normally, I mean, if you're a project manager, you care about deadlines, you care about avoiding surprises, you want to have like full information. Okay, cool. So what shall we do? What shall we focus on in order to have those people jumping in our side? So when we are presenting an idea, what are the things that we have to focus in order to be convincing to those people? Fast delivery, managing expectations, provide information radiator. So provide information, things that can be accessed without asking. For example, I mean, there is Figma, and I've seen many people sharing Figma links, and so project managers can go there and see how much of the stuff are completed and how much of the things are still on working. Marketing managers, same thing. And again, like this kind of patterns can be applied to so many people that sometimes, I mean, they're very influential and they can have like a very high role in the way ideas are made, are getting through it. A completely different things, although not so different, might be applied to executives, because actually executives are very different beasts. So I'm trying to put this in a nutshell because this thing is very complicated, but let me try to give some information here, because I hope that you might find it very interesting. So what executives are interested on, normally is one thing: they want to increase revenues. How do they want to increase the revenue? So what is the most common thing revenues are increased? Well, through new businesses. And how new businesses are generated? Normally, in most of the cases, through referrals from existing businesses. So you have like some kind of customers are happy, they are basically recommend you to another customer. And works at any level. It works like when you have like a single app for a consumer on the App Store, and you have like very good reviews, and then you download the app because it has 5 stars. Or even when you're working on enterprise, when you're working on different level, there are like those people, those CEOs or executives, they know each other. They say like, oh, I worked very well with those people. Let's get them involved. And where referrals comes from? Well, referrals comes from satisfied customers. So somehow our role as a UX people, as a good people that wants to make good ideas, is basically removing the cost of frustration. Sorry for the typo here. I put 2 times the same thing. I mean, sorry, apologies. But again, like, what is the cost of frustration? It's basically all things that can go wrong when we're doing our digital things. I mean, let's put ourselves in the customer's shoes. And when there are, like, for example, accidental errors and mistakes, when you have to do rework, or you're doing something that is very useless. For example, I don't know, you have to compile something on paper, you have to scan it, you have to send it via post. When there are some things that are not actually understood, so people don't use them, or just misunderstand how a feature works, or just they have unrealistic expectations, this is the frustration. So as a UX person, when we are talking with executives, we have to always to talk about the cost of frustration. We have to be very clear how our idea is going to remove the cost of frustration. Because if the cost of frustration is removed, we have satisfied customers. Satisfied customers are going to make referrals, will generate new businesses that will increase revenues. Any questions so far?
Ooh, so much information. Yeah, we have a lot of questions here. I will go back because they started even just right next after you started the second section. So the first question was from Diana. Why really big and popular companies have a very inconvenient and incomprehensible sites?
Probably the most accurate answer for this question is a thing called the Conway's law. I don't know if you heard already. So the Conway's law is something that this guy called Mel Conway discovered like something like in the 60s. It's very old. And it basically says something like this. Let's see if I can remember correctly. It says that each organization is constrained to produce a design that reflects the way the work is structured. So sometimes you have like very big companies and their websites are so badly organized and their patterns are not working at all because this is the actual organization, because the actual organization doesn't work, because their internal teams are not talking each other, because the way they're interacting is not the perfect way, because there are so many useless things and painful things that the actual employees have to feel. So there is this kind of relationship between how things are made and the actual things that is made, that it's a sort of iron law. So it's true. Like sometimes like you have like very big companies and they have tons of money and they can provide great services, but the way they're making websites is basically reflecting that their organization is basically flawed.
Thank you. I worked with huge companies as well, with Volkswagen, and I feel this pain of the company and the pain of such companies. But I'm not sure that I understand it correctly. What is the top tip you expect to present the idea?
Mike, can you check your microphone? I cannot hear you anymore.
Sorry.
Okay, now it's back. Yeah, thank you.
It was my hand. So I don't think that I understand this question, but maybe you will understand it. What is the top issues UX people who present their ideas? Maybe what are the main issues for UX people who are presenting the ideas?
Well, in my experience, when they present their ideas, the issues that they find is that people feel that is unnecessary. People say like, oh yeah, I mean, but this thing is not important right now. Let's make it work. Let's make it I don't know, a walking skeleton. Let's make the MVP. Have you heard about this thing? Let's make the MVP. That most of the thing is a very polite way to say let's make it crap and then let's see. This is very challenging because again, like this is normally it means that on the other side there are people that don't understand the value of UX. Again, like the thing that we should do is going through the stuff that I've been discussing, I've been presenting you. I mean, I tried. First of all, understanding who are the people ahead of us, in front of us, how much is their influence on making the final decision, and speak their language. So understand what are their necessity, their needs, their priorities, and try to find out how our solution is going to help them to make things, to basically to have a positive impact on the things they care.
Cool, thank you. It's totally true. So the next question is, how do you make a sanity check and decide whether your idea is a really good one and is worth to be fought for?
That's a very good one. Somehow I'm going to talk about this more in the next session. But basically it's about deconstructing what is behind it. So once you have like an idea, there are different elements that made you think that this is a good idea. So somehow you have to deconstruct it. You have to make it like clear for everybody so other people can come in and give you feedback. And we're going to talk about it later.
Cool, thank you. Did you try any worthwhile ideas and that did not pass the test in one project to implement in other project? It's pity to put your potential profitable ideas into a drawer, or every time the search for a good solution starts from scratch?
I don't know if I understand the question correctly. So because it seems to be a very long one. If it seems that the question is about if there are some ideas they are basically originated by other ideas, or if they come out of nowhere. Is this the question?
I think that it will take some time to for me to understand, but I think that we will ask Daria to maybe to reconstruct the question and to make it shorter, and then you will answer maybe after the second block.
Yes, I would love to, because I mean, it seems very familiar. Again, like the thing I mean, this might be a very interesting challenge.
Yeah, okay. So, hi Matteo, what tools would you recommend for testing UX and design hypotheses for web?
Huh. There are so many things that we can do in order to test things, and depends a lot on what are the things that we are testing. First of all, we have to talk about the possibilities that we have. So sometimes, it's a single idea can be very challenging to test. Let's say I would like to test, I don't know, a new engine for a rocket to go to the moon. That's not something I can test unless I don't have the engine and I'm starting on. But there are different things that can be tested in different ways. So there are a lot of ways where we can do things. We can start with paper prototyping. We can start with just, like try to sell the idea before we build something. We can get through I don't know, like for example, A/B test, fake landing pages. There are so many ways that we can do. But the question here probably is how we can decide what's the best one. And this again, like depends a lot from the effort that is necessary and the amount of information that we would like to get out of this test, because we may be in a different stage of the product development.
Cool, thank you. The next question is quite strange. So, can a good UX designer save a not so good idea? But I can understand why should he do that. But
yeah, I mean, well, this is totally true. I mean, I feel it. Yes, sometimes it happens that people, very brilliant people, have not so brilliant ideas. It's all right, but again, like I feel that actually, there is one thing that is totally true, and it says like good ideas comes from many ideas. So it means that in order to have a very good one, you need to generate a lot of different things, and sometimes you might actually end up with something that is not proper solid. Let's say it's pretty crappy. It's okay, it's fine, because it means that we have like a sort of a process where those things can be presented, can be communicated, and again, like we can gather feedback. We can have like other people telling us, oh, sounds really good, or oh my god, this is crap, let's stop it.
thank you. What 3 tips can you give when building a design process in a team?
Oh my god, so many. But again, like I think that the first one I've been mentioning is the most precious one. The one that I would say that again, like it made me going through so many different situations and find the sense of things. Again, like understand to be understood. Like if you have something to say, if you want to change the way the design process is structured at the moment in your team, you have to understand why is now shaped in this way. What are the reasons? What are the things? Who made that? What are their original intention? And why things evolved in the way that they are now? Without knowing this, you can do anything. So the first step is always about, like, again, like understanding the landscape. And again, like as a UX professional, this might be something very, very familiar to you, because when you want to do something for the user, again, like the first thing is about knowing the user, why they are trying to solve the problem right now with the current solution that they have.
Okay, and top 2 and top 3.
For me, again?
Yeah, because it was like top 3.
The top 3. Oh my god. Oh yeah, I mean, again, like understanding things is very, very important. What else I can say? Let's see if I have some notes coming from my work that can help me to understand, to give something that makes sense. Oh, very important thing is definitely about involving people in the decisions. Like nobody wants to wants to have a sort of dictatorship of the process. Nobody wants to know what are the things that has to be done because somebody said so. So it's very, very important to have like a sort of force emerging from the ground. So we have to have sort of kind of alignment. So once we align it, we can decide what's the best way to go. And the best to approach this, I don't know if this is actually the third one, it might be go through experiments. So don't commit on something big immediately, because nothing that starts big will never work. You need to evolve things from small things over time, and this might be frustrating. I mean, this might be take time, because I mean, it's pretty sure that you're going through a lot of mistakes, but this is fine. I mean, this is the way we learn. Again, like, instead of committing for a big change of the way we work or the way we're doing design, let's try to do it with proper experiments and keep track of those experiments. I've been doing a lot of activities in my past with teams where we created a sort of experiment board, and we said, okay, I mean, we're trying to do, I don't know, we're trying to use abstract for versioning the designs. Okay, and after 2 weeks, you have to kind of come back and say, like, okay, is this happening? Is this helping us? Is this something that is valuable that we want to keep, or something that we want to drop, or we would like to give it another chance? This kind of process helps a lot.
Cool, thank you. Daria rephrased her previous question, so
Thank you, Daria.
Thank you, Daria. Where does the responsibility of the UX designer end, considering that they're simultaneously immersed in the research, marketing, and development? This is especially true for, is it especially true for small companies?
Oh my God, yeah, this is definitely a real challenge. Thanks, Daria. Um, you know, I will give you a very honest answer here. I would say that there is no actual limit. So if you see a problem, there is no such a thing that problem is somebody else's problem. At least you need to have like a sort of curiosity to see how those things are addressed. And again, like, there are things that you can do, there are things that you cannot. So it's very important to understand what are the things that you can influence directly, that you can act, and what are the things that you cannot and you have to accept. But again, like, this kind of thing comes with experience. So the more you get through it, the better you will understand. But again, like, for me, it's very hard to draw a line, because I mean, in my entire career, I fought the opposite battle. If I thought about the fact that, like, everything that we build it as a team. And in a team, there are roles. Like, think about a football team. Yes, there are roles, because I mean, there is the defender, there is the midfielder, there is the forward. But well, sometimes it's the defender who scores, or sometimes it's the forwards that comes back to defend. So it's not, again, like, winning is everybody's job, and we have to act as a collective more than thinking about our role that starts here and ends there.
Cool, thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
You remember that there was the day when there were some different types of designers, and now they call them just product designers, and you should do everything. So I guess that it should be the answer for this question.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I had the chance of going through different stages, let's say, of the digital software circus, because again, like, I had the privilege of starting this job when I was very young. And I've seen that, at the beginning, there was somebody like, the webmaster. And the webmaster was pretty much doing everything, like from coding to design to maintaining the servers and doing things. And then, like, we went through different stages of specialization. So again, like, I'm not saying that specializing is bad. But again, like, it's more like a football team. I really like football, so I really like the football metaphor. Again, like, it's about acting together. And sometimes you have to do things that your role is not designed exactly for that, but again, like, you need to, if there is the need, you have to.
Cool, thank you. And the last but not least question for this section: any tips and tricks of how to track your interaction with all these different bubbles, and in brackets, in terms of communication and mapping org structure?
In terms of communication, mapping a structure, this might be something that I'm going to touch on the next session. But in general, it's very nice when we have like the chance of sharing what we've been learning through conversations during something like with the rest of the team. Let's say, like, again, like, it's very unlike that we are working alone. We are normally working in a team. And if at the end of the day or the beginning of the day we cannot share something, let's say, like, those are the things I learned talking with people X, or we may have like something like a Slack channel or a place where those conversations may happen. Again, like I've been doing something with a team once where at the end of each day, we put something on the wall and we were say like the learning wall. And we were basically collecting all the things that we've been learning during the day, just like random post-its, or just like with a sort of with a pen, right, typing something, say like, okay, I learned that that guy from finance is actually is asking for this feature since forever. Okay, that's a very important element, and that's why the next time we're going to be in a meeting with that finance guy, we need to probably talk about that feature.
Cool. There are no questions for this moment, so let's move forward. Thank you a lot.
Okay, let's go forward. And that's the moment where we understood, we basically, well, we spent some time understanding who are the people around us and what is their role and how much influence do they have, and what is important for them. And again, like how as a UX people, we can give them something that is valuable. We can influence them through empathizing a bit about their needs. It's coming the point where we have to frame our ideas, we have to present our ideas, we have to share, and we have to communicate what we would like to build. And this, I mean, I would like to start the session quoting this guy, which is called Herbert Simon, which is one of my favorite author ever. And he has probably the best definition for design I ever heard. He says, like, to design is to devise courses of action aiming to change the existing situation into the preferred one. So it's basically starting from the existing situation and bringing it into a preferred one. So with this kind of movement, so we are living in a world, we are living in a situation, our users are experiencing some kind of things, and the act of design is basically changing things in order to have them moving into a preferred situation, into a preferred world, into a preferred space. So if this is the core of design, what is the existing situation? So in a nutshell, what I'm referring to existing situation is basically made by three elements. There are the people, again, like who are the customers, who are the users. This time is not the internal people, but it's basically the people that we are serving. Is the context that they are experiencing, like for example, what is the challenge that people are called to address? Like I'm putting here, for example, a car accident, but it might be like doing online shop, or just, I don't know, ask for a return for a wrong package whatsoever. And again, like what is the intention, what they are trying to achieve in this situation? So they've been stuck in a problem, they've been stuck in a situation, they are a specific kind of people, and they want to do something. Those three elements all together, they can represent the existing situation. And if design is about bringing the people from the existing situation into preferred one, we need to be very clear about what is our intention. Again, like we can spend a lot of time, but somehow it's very interesting to have a sort of a template, a sort of guideline, a sort of thing that will help us to put things together. And working with teams and working with designers, I end up with this thing that might be very helpful to basically capture all things that you see here. So the people, the context, the intentions of what they want to do, and what's the current situation, and what is the preferred situation where we want to go. So again, like when we are presenting a design, when there is a design idea that we want to present, sorry, I will use this one. I'm normally putting the design at the center. Oh, I mean, I would like to see this. I would like to see the design at the center. Again, like here, there is a sort of a journey, but it might be even a simple screen, a single thing. And somehow we need to add those four elements around it. That two of them on the left are more intended to expose the purpose, the why. Why this design is good? Why we are thinking that this is a very good idea? Why we have to invest on this? And again, like on the right side is more about the guidance. It's more about what are the things that we have to do in order to make this design happening the right way. And this is normally a sort of, you can think about, a sort of a box where we're putting our design. So when we are communicating, so when we are basically bringing this design to another people, to a meeting, to a different situation where we have to present it, it's very clear what are those four elements? What are the four things? Because once people understand what are those four things, they can understand the design. They can understand why this is a good idea. Let's have a look at one by one. So I'm trying to give you a sort of understanding of why I mean with those section. Again, like the first one is about also observation and insights. And this is probably the place where we're going to put all the things we know about the existing situation. So what are the things that we observe from research? What are the things that we observe through data? What are the things that we experience as a user? So we've been looking at people using our app, and what are the things that they're struggling with? What is the frustration? Again, like the cost of frustration. What are the things that are not working? What is ultimately the problem? Again, like what are the things that people are trying to fix here? They're trying to solve here. And this thing, it might be very, very explicit. I feel that most of the designers, when they're trying to present a design, they lost this very important piece of information, which is means like, what is the problem that you're trying to solve with this design? Who are the people they are meant to interact with this? What is the situation that they have that is presented that they want to address, and why they want to go through those things? For example, here the second one is about setting the goal. Setting a goal, I like this expression about, you know, like when we have to communicate the goal, what is the intention, what is the purpose behind a single piece of design? We should ask ourselves this question: what is the superpower we'd like to offer to our user? Again, like let's think about like people stuck in a traffic jam, or for example, I don't know, they had a car accident. What is the superpower we would like to give them immediately in that situation when they are trying to solve that problem? And again, like I'm putting here some kind of helpers, I would say, some kind of direction of improvements that might be helpful for people to understand what I mean with superpower. Because it may be that we would like to give them access, we would like to increase the access. For example, we would like to make it easier, faster, simple, closer, or just available when we are talking about information. Think about, I don't know, you just made a car accident, you would like to have available, I don't know, your insurance number, so you can call them immediately. Or it may be even easier, so you don't have to call them because there is a device that automatically detects the accident. Or it might be faster, so they call you. Or it might be simpler, that because you don't have to call anything, you just go back home and everything is going to be filled. Who knows? Or you may think about increased engagement. So again, like it's about giving a trustful source for valuable content. Think about, I don't know, a newspaper, for example. Like you'd like to increase the engagement, giving people the impression that they are having like, they have dealing with very trustful things. You want to increase the customization. So people are doing something in a certain way. You want to give them control so they can actually shape the way they're interacting with something. This is something very common when you're doing some kind of, you know, I don't know, enterprise software or things that people are using at work. Think about, I don't know, I don't know, MS Word or Google Docs. You would like to customize, I don't know, shortcuts. You would like to customize things. So you would like to be, in order to be more effective when you work. You would like to increase the connection. So you would like to basically have multiple people using your product and having a conversation around that, like social network, but also, I don't know, having like the chance of looking what other people are doing, or just connecting people, or just having them collaborating. Again, like think about the case of Google Doc. Google Docs is a place where people are getting together and basically each one of them make a contribution in order to produce a sort of a shared result. This is very important. Like it may be very useful for you to picture what is the superpower that you like to give to those people. Then moving on the right side, there is this box that I call the key elements. So the key elements is something that it might be useful, for example, for people to understand in order to see, like, in order to have a clear idea of what are the key things that are going to be presented to customers, to users, and what are the things that will make them taking a decision. Think about, I don't know, a screen of a landing page. So what are the key elements here? It might be like the call to action, it might be the explanation of the service, it might be something else. And it has to be just described, but it has to be clear, because sometimes, you know, when you're presenting a design, those elements are basically inscripted into a very large thing. Like you may have like, I don't know, navigation, you may have like, I don't know, like different indicators, different things, different stuff. You need to be very explicit about where you'd like to see the focus of the customer looking at. So for example, it might be a customizable avatar image, tracker name, select a state, scroll signifier. So something that is very important for the users at each step. So something that they should focus on. It might be a button, it might be a specific action, it might be some kind of information that they have to read in order to make the action. Something that will make them decide to go through. And the last one is something very fascinating for me, because I believe that this is probably the most effective way to communicate intentions. And you see already applied in many, many places. It's called like the mental model, but it's basically a way to say like, this is a metaphor. Like, think about, you know, like most of the things that we have, like we implemented through years when we are talking about UI is basically a metaphor. You like a menu is a metaphor of a menu, like of something that you will find in the restaurant. A carousel is actually this kind of thing here in the middle of the screen. Is not actually a carousel. Again, like it's a remote control, it's a key to enter a door. What is this? Like trying to explain things using metaphors might be a very, very powerful way to give people guidance, to give people idea what you like to implement. And once they are there, they can actually be in the position where they can give you feedback. They can tell you, okay, this is something that we can do. This is something that seems very, very good. And I'd like to present, I'd like to go through with this. Let's make a check. Is there any question coming from the people?
Yep, just one. Persona creating or job to be done? Or do you prefer some other framework?
Why not both? So yes, I like personas, I like job to be done, I like both of those approaches, and I think that they can be combined. So I don't see them as an extreme. Sometimes, you know, I feel that, you know, like when you're talking, when we're already looking at the idea of making personas, it's all about the intention. It's all about understanding why a specific kind of people wants to do something. And this is at the end is the core of the job to be done. Jobs to be done was basically say like, okay, we don't care so much about demographics. We don't care so much about this. We would like to know why people are hiring a specific service in order to perform a specific job. This is cool, and this might be definitely part of a persona analysis. Like you can merge those approaches. I've seen it many times, and I believe that this is definitely the way to go.
Cool. I just want to, there are no questions, that's why I will take 1 minute. According to metaphors, which you mentioned, I read an article which helped me a lot to rethink this part. And it was really mentioned that I think that it was really important, highlighted that you should be sure that they are the good metaphors, because you don't need to put icon if you are not clearly understand that it will be clear for the people. So not just the icon will help the people, but the clear icon should be like the help.
This is very, very cool, actually. Yes, because I had the same feeling. You know, sometimes you have like icons, and icons mean something, but it might mean something to you, while other people may have a very different interpretation. Yes, this is true when you do interfaces. But again, like here, when you have to present an idea, expliciting what is your mental model. So how you see things. Again, like, do you see this as a remote control? Do you see this more like, I don't know, a key to enter a door? Do you see this more like, I don't know, a comfortable couch where you can stop and think? Do you see the space more like, I don't know, an elevator where you move from a place to another? Do you see this, I don't know, like a lobby? You know, have you heard about this thing about the virtual lobby? Oh my God, it's terrible, because I mean, it remembers me so many enterprise application for meetings. But yeah, that's a metaphor.
Cool, yeah. I worked at the company and we worked with big data, and there was like the combination of the words data lake. And
Yes.
marketing designers, they didn't understand that it should be a metaphor, and they created the slides for the clients, potential clients, and they just draw the lake with a data inside. So
But that's a very powerful metaphor. I love it. I love it so much. Like when you're talking about data lakes, like because data lakes is definitely that. You see that it's a lot of things. It's big. It's a lot of stuff. It's very hard to get through it. But it may be used for generating electric power, for example, right? If you put like a sort of a dam in front of it, so it can generate with turbines. Like it's very powerful. I like it. Yes.
yeah, but it wasn't so good as you described. It wasn't. It
Yeah,
was
I can tell you that again, like
it wasn't
metaphors.
a metaphor. It
Yeah.
was just data and lake, and nothing more. So we don't have any questions more. I think that all people, they asked all these questions after the second session. So
Okay.
I think that that's it. But if you want to add something, because it was incredible, I think that they are just rethinking all parts of their design and rethinking all the things which you said during this session.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, I'm going to share this deck at the end of the session, so you can spend your time. You can get
Cool.
back to this, and if you have other questions, you can contact me on Twitter or directly on my email or whatever channel you would prefer. I will be more than happy to answer your own questions and to see how those things can be applied in your context. I would be very curious actually to hear your impression. Okay, let's go through the session dedicated to collecting feedback, because again, like the first one, you know the people. So you spend some time understanding what is important for them. The second session is about preparing the idea, so packing your design with some valuable information that will allow those people to understand why you think that this is something good. Now it's about to listen. It's about to get something back from them, because like again, like this situation, it's very, very common. And when you have like those people looking at the thing that you presented and they are actually talking about something different, you would like to talk about the importance of, like of making a very neat checkout process, and they keep talking about why that button is red instead of blue, or why that image represents mountains instead of, I don't know, airplanes. So what I learned is that the thing that without feedback, we don't know what is the reality out of here. So somehow we need to go through this process. So it's very important to understand if what we feel, our perceptions, reaction, and observations or intentions are basically matching the reality. So there is this kind of idea that comes from cybernetic, that the only thing that we have to interact with the world is basically through feedback. So we sense and then we respond. So what is this is a key element of presenting, of making things. So if you want to do something, if you want to craft something, if you want to create a new interface or a new flow for registration, you need to go through feedback. This is not something that you will avoid. And the more feedback you have, the more possibilities you have that your idea is becoming solid and very, very valuable for the end customer. But there is a problem actually, because most of the people that we have to deal with, they are not professionally trained to give you feedback. So the thing that the way we interact in the way we are managing feedback is something that somehow is way naive. So we are approaching feedback sometimes with the question like, what do you think? And this is definitely the worst thing to ask. Like the worst thing to ask is giving some design to people. I've seen like, I did it like in the past, again, like I've been sending through email and I was saying like, what do you think? And I was expecting something valuable coming back from that conversation. Would not. It's very hard to get something valuable because again, like people are not trained to give you good feedback. This is something that they have to learn, but somehow you have to guide them through the process. And that's why something I found very interesting in applied in very, very different contexts, but specifically here when we are talking about presenting ideas, is this thing that I call the feedback matrix. So the feedback matrix is basically a big thing, like split in 4 different quadrants, where I'm going to ask people to collect their thoughts through post-its. So this is something that right now with the COVID probably is better that you would do with Miro or Mural or other things that will allow you to create a board. But this might be very, very easy because again, like you go there, you create a new frame, you put those 4 quadrants, and you basically ask the people to fill their ideas under those quadrants, following the structure here. So from the top left, you're gonna ask them what doesn't work, what is seems wrong, what is seems wasteful, what is seems inappropriate or potentially harmful, what is something that they can actually be worried of, and you are gonna ask them to type something and put it there without judgment, without saying anything. Then you move to the other quadrant that says like, what are the things I'm missing? What are the things I lost? What are the things I ignored? What are the things that you would expect to be here, but you cannot find? Because again, like people might have very different ideas how a specific screen would look like. For example, I don't know, you designed the new checkout, and there is no room for putting the discount code. So, and I'm putting here, okay, the discount code is missing. Is that true? Then moving on the bottom left, you can actually ask them, what can be improved? What are the things that are present? So they are there, but you feel that they are still suboptimal, that they can actually be made in a better way. And again, like they can generate ideas, the people that you have actually in front of you. And I mean, it may be, again, like it may be the team, it may be the organization, it may be external team. I have to say, in my experience, this worked really well with external people. You ask them like, what are the things that you see here, but they can be better, that they can be improved, cheaper, blah, blah, blah. And this is tremendously important. And I feel that most of the people forget about this. You also have to ask what they feel it's good, what they feel it's a good solution, works well. And because once you know what are the things that they feel it's good, you can actually keep an eye in order to keep them for future iteration. Because if you don't know that people particularly appreciated, I don't know, the way a login form works, or the way I don't know, for example, a menu is made. If you don't have like this kind of information, you may think about redesigning it in the future. You may think about changing it. You may be about I don't know, getting rid of it. So you need to have like the explicit declaration from people that says like, okay, this is good, this is useful, this is what we want. Those are very interesting things. So when you ask people what do you think, again, like it's very hard that you will get something good out of that. When you ask people what doesn't work, what is missing, what can be improved, what is good, what you feel is really good, those are very actionable things. And again, like it doesn't mean that you have to take those feedbacks and translate it immediately into something that you have to do. Like one thing about feedback is the fact that every time you receive a feedback, you can decide to accept the feedback or to ignore it. This is a very important thing. Like you may say, okay, I mean, people feel that this thing doesn't work. I believe it works, and I'm going to show them through, I don't know, analytics. I'm going to show them through, I don't know, A/B test or running a user testing session. But again, like this might be an indicator for you to put extra attention on that thing. Like if you didn't know that, it's going to be like you're going to be blind. But since there are people signaling, there are people like telling you this maybe not work for many, you will keep extra thing. Again, like it doesn't mean that you're gonna do exactly what people are telling you to do here, but those are somehow food for thoughts. Those are very good directions, very good things to look at in order to find something interesting, to find something that might be applied in order to make your product better. And that's the moment for another question.
Unfortunately, we don't have any. So yeah, I have just the question because I missed the point. So you mentioned that all of these stickers, again, stickers, you lovely stickers. So all of them like should be in this table, but so should we ask people to explain their decision, like, and their opinion about that? Because I think that without without the explanation of that, it's just the words I don't like. And
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mistake. I forgot that part. So this thing works pretty much like you would expect. So you ask people to generate things. You will see if there are something that are close to each other. So you will create clusters. You basically see like, I don't know, 10 people said that the navigation doesn't work. And you're gonna have like a cluster of 10 different things that says like navigation doesn't work. But then you have to ask them what are their impression. Yes, then you can have the conversation. So, and I would say that that's the interesting part. You probably um, got the point. The important thing here is that the kind of conversation you might have out of this, because again, like you maybe have like people saying like, okay, I feel that, I don't know, the discount code is not present, and you might say like, have you seen that? He's here. Like you might actually have a conversation. You might have an interaction with that. And yeah, this is true.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of questions. How do you filter the feedback?
How do I filter the feedback? Well, again, like I believe that each time you receive a feedback, you can decide to accept the feedback or to basically ignore it, to refuse it, to take it as a different thing, to not act as a command. So every time, I mean, a feedback is something that is going to inform you, and you're going to be informed by the feedback. But doesn't mean that it's going to dictate you. So how do you decide to accept the feedback or not? Well, it depends a lot from your knowledge. So by the point then you're presenting something, it means that you did some research, you've been spending some time into something, so you know what can work and what cannot. So you might get something that might be very trivial, might be something that you already explored and didn't work, and by that thing you probably decide that this doesn't worth any further explanation. You don't have to get them, you don't have to take it seriously. uh, or it might be something that you completely ignored, like a haha moment, saying like, oh wow, this is something completely unexpected, I didn't think about that, so I will take it.
Thank you. There is one listener want to understand, do we speak about feedback from client or users? But as I understand that we are talking about the team.
Again, like this is a sort of a tool that you can use in very different situations. Um, and do you remember this thing I showed you before with all the people around that you have to interact? You can apply this with all the people here. So with all the ecosystem where you live it. Here. So exactly, it might be. Oh my god, I was too fast. Sorry. Okay, so it's basically can be made with several people from the team. Like if you have like a conversation with the team, and normally when you are in a team level, those conversation flows very fast. So normally when you're at team level, those feedback doesn't need to have such a structure. You probably need a structure when you are presenting your idea to the rest of the organization, when you want to collect some feedback coming from the sales people or from the branding people, from the marketing people, from the executives, or you want to present this thing to externs, so to external people. Think about like a client, think about again, like a product director from the partner organization that you're working with. Those things needs to be articulated, and you need to design somehow the way you're collecting things. Although, I mean, again, like those kind of questions are very valuable also when you have to deal with proper customers. Let's say that you have your users, you're inviting your users for a user test, and you can ask them those questions at the end of the session, saying like, what do you feel didn't work? What do you feel that was missing? What do you feel that was good? Again, like those doesn't have to be some kind of direction that you have to take, but you have to weight those feedback and say, decide if this is something valuable that you like to pursue or not.
Thank you. So I think that the main point is just about feedback, and it doesn't matter where you will get them. Just get as.
Yes, the main point is about feedback, but again, like it's about structuring the feedback, somehow designing the way you're collecting information back. So we are doing some kind of work designing the product, designing the way we are communicating this information, again, with the structure I've been showing you before. But now we are also designing how we are getting information from the people that that we are interacting with. And again, like this is probably the point where most of ideas start flying, because you see here people are basically feeling that they are part of a process.
Cool, thank you. And that's it. So we don't have any questions more. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much then.
Thank you, Matteo. I guess that all people loved this session because you got 35 likes. It's a lot. And in one moment, there were, I think that almost 100 people were watching. So it's a
Wow.
lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope that I will see you soon. And yeah, waiting for new events with you. And thank you so much for your.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Like, thank you very much for spending your time here with me, and I hope to see you in Kiev, maybe. Yes, I mean, finger crossed.
Yeah, we have a lot of spots. That's why maybe people will come to Prague, maybe to Berlin, but definitely we will have a cup of tea or beer. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh yes. Again,
Thank
like
you
if you
so
have
much.
some other questions coming from the slide deck or just thinking about the stuff that we've been discussing, you feel free to write me on Twitter, Matteo MCED, and Matteo at mced.it is my email.
Such easy way to find you. But if you will
Yes,
forget that, just text us. We will give you all the contacts. So it's not.
even better.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.